Hi there. This is a love letter meant specially for leaders and managers, and however you define yourself, if you find yourself in that kind of a role where you're leading people, this is meant for you. I want to start by saying thank you for whatever work you do to help our society stay functioning, to help our people stay connected, to help our communities run, to help our schools, our hospitals, our businesses keep functioning. And so I also want to acknowledge that this has been a stressful time to be a leader. I have a long history of having worked in leadership, and I think this is probably the most unique time in history to be trying to lead people, because we are all under this really unique stress load in this pandemic. I'm recording this about 19 months into the pandemic. It's already been a long journey, and we don't yet know what the future is going to hold. And you feel responsible for people, whatever role you're in. I know as a leader, you are bound to feel some responsibility for other people, and you're probably stressed out, and your people are stressed out, and we're all a little bit burnt out from this pandemic. And so I want to offer you a little gift. I'm just offering little tidbits of some of the teaching that I do in my workshops and in my book, The Art of Holding Space. I want to talk to you a little bit about how I think that you can be better supported in your work as a leader and manager. So let's talk about disruption. We have, for the last 19, 20 months, we have been in a time of great disruption. Every one of us. You can't escape it right now because everything is different. We're wearing masks when we go out, most of us. We're having to do things differently. We've had to get used to social distancing, and we are in this time when nothing looks quite like it did a year and a half ago. And as a leader or manager, you are having to recognize this and support people who've been in this disruptive place. Especially if you're a business owner, you've probably had some significant disruptions in your business when things got locked down in whatever place in the world you are. And so I think you understand what it means to be disruptive. I don't have disrupted in your life. I don't need to explain this too much, but if you think about the definition of disruption, it is the action of preventing something, especially a system, process, or event, from continuing as usual or as expected. It's an interruption in the usual way that a system, process, or event works. What I want to talk to you about a little bit is how disruption is impacting the people that you're leading and impacting the environment that you're in, and even impacting the capacity that people have to work at full capacity, to think, to use their brains, to use their rational minds. All of these things have been disrupted. So let's talk about a brain under stress. When you disrupt something, the system that a brain is part of, a brain is going to resort to it's going to default really to its amygdala. And the amygdala is the survival part of the brain. It's where the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn happens. When we go into disruption, there's an automatic triggering that says we've got to survive. Something has changed here. We have to survive. The brain figures that out. And when you're in that disruption, you don't have the full capacity of your prefrontal cortex. You can't think as rationally. You start to, your worldview might change. You see things in a lot more black and white. You see things as absolutes, maybe because you're more fearful than normal. You aren't able to understand or process the nuance in the world as much because you need to protect yourself. You're in that kind of safety mode. And really, we lose our capacity to be patient with people because we just need to survive. And so this may be what you're dealing with as a leader, manager in your workplace, is people are a bit more edgy. They're a little bit more easily excitable. They don't get along with people as well, perhaps. And there's, conflict increases, and people can't manage as well when, especially they might not receive criticism as well. They might not be able to, they may become emotional quite quickly when something upsets them. So these are all things that you've probably been experiencing over the last 18 to 20 months of this pandemic. It's maybe not every day, but I expect that this doesn't feel unfamiliar to you during this time. One of the things that shows up when we are under stress is this concept called cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is our inability to hold two ideas that feel like they conflict in our brain. So for example, if I have a belief that I am a good person, and then you tell me that I've done a bad thing, I have a lot of difficulty holding those simultaneously, because the I'm a good person wants to destroy this thought that I've done a bad thing. So I'm going to try to justify that bad thing. I'm going to try to argue. I'm going to chase it from my mind, or I'm going to blame somebody else. This is what happens when we're in that moment of cognitive dissonance, and you see that much more when people are under stress. You're going to seek to resolve the discomfort by justifying one belief or value or attitude and eliminating the other and acting accordingly. So in that dissonance of I'm a good person, probably the bad thing is going to be the one that you will chase out of your mind. Now, what happens when two people are in a situation where they both choose to believe something differently? Let's talk about this justification triangle. This is from a book called The Mistakes Were Made But Not By Me. When two people suddenly begin to believe something different, maybe they've been presented with the same argument, but neither of them can quite manage to hold these two opposing arguments at the same time. One of them is going to choose to believe one thing, and one's going to choose to believe another thing. So let's say something happens in your workplace, and somebody is at fault, and maybe there's been a break-in or something, and you don't know whether somebody has forgotten to lock the door or something like that. One person's going to believe, I absolutely locked the door. Another person's going to believe that other person is lazy and neglectful, and they probably didn't lock the door. So they're going to step into these different sides of a triangle. Now, we gradually move down the triangle because we look for things that justify our belief system. If I believe that I am not at fault, I locked the door, I'm a good person, I'm going to look for everything that's going to justify that belief, and I'm going to find things. That's where our confirmation bias comes in, that justify me being a good person. If you, on the other hand, believe me to be a lazy person, you're going to look for every bit of evidence that proves that I'm not a dependable person. I couldn't possibly have locked the door, and I've done it many times, and you'll look for all kinds of arguments. Now what happens is we have slid further and further down this triangle until we are at very different places. We might have started with just slightly different beliefs, but our confirmation bias has landed us in completely opposite camps. This is what we're really seeing during this pandemic in a significant way. There's an increase in polarization. People are arguing more. You go onto social media and you feel this great anger and sense of, people need to justify their own beliefs, especially when it comes to things like vaccination or masks. You're having people, and you may be facing this in your workplace, where people are in very different camps and they just can't find any common ground to have those conversations. Now what happens? You combine disruption and cognitive dissonance, you're going to have resistance, you're going to have denial, you're going to have people that are clinging to the past and trying to do things the way they used to do, you're going to have relationship challenges, you're going to have conflict. It's a disrupted workplace. And here's your challenge as a leader. Suddenly you've got a whole group of people, however many you're responsible for leading, and these are alarmed brains that don't have the normal capacity for higher functioning thinking. So they're maybe not as rational as normal. They're blaming other people. There's more conflict. And what do you do as a leader to help hold space and to manage this? This is your great challenge. Now I can't give you all the answers to this in a short video. I wanted to introduce the concept and encourage you to think more about it. And I do encourage you to dig deeper into my book, into some of my workshops to find out more. But I want to offer a few tips if you find yourself in this place. First of all, don't try to be a lone wolf. This is not a time for leading people alone. This is a time for collaborative leadership, working together, finding our communities, and connecting with people that can support us. I encourage you to think about being a host leader rather than a hero leader. This is language I've adopted from Margaret Wheatley, because hosting is about allowing what's there to be present and allowing people to take responsibility for their own behavior and actions and beliefs, and not imposing or directing or forcing. It's not you trying to be the hero in the room, but inviting other people to step into their own self-leadership. I encourage you to work with your people to create spaces of safety where people can admit to their overwhelm, their burnout, etc. This is a good time to maybe have a check-in. Maybe every Friday morning you just gather your people and say, how are you feeling? Or Monday morning when you've just come back from the weekend, just a check-in, just an opportunity to become more emotionally literate in your workplace so that people feel more supported and they feel they have greater capacity to admit those feelings that are disrupting how they're working and how they're thinking right now. I encourage you to hold space for yourself and practice self-regulation so that you're better equipped to support your people. And there are other things as well. One of the things that I teach a lot about is how to hold space for circles where people can speak to their own experience, where you can surface more of your concerns and people can be honest about their belief systems in a way that doesn't project blame onto other people. So I encourage you, if you're interested in this, please dig deeper. My book is called The Art of Holding Space, a practice of love, liberation, and leadership. And at the Center for Holding Space, we have lots of more resources where you can learn more. There's a course on holding space for disruption and overwhelm. And we have an annual 8-month program. If you click on our link for the path to certification and then go down to our foundation program, that's where the meat and potatoes of this program, our learning around holding space, is offered. You'll learn a lot about how to hold space for each other and for yourself, and how to bring those practices into your leadership. I really hope this was helpful, and I hope you have a great day.